This video is brought to you by CuriosityStream. Get access to CuriosityStream and my streaming service Nebula, and check out my Nebula exclusive video Debater Theater when you sign up for CuriosityStream at curiositystream.com/SarahZ with the coupon code SarahZ. So when I was 13, I was cast as the narrator in a summer camp production of 101 Dalmatians, and I needed to learn how to do a posh English accent. I searched up tutorials on YouTube and ended up on a very helpful channel called VideoJug, where an acting coach taught me some great tips for how to sound like Wallace and Gromit. Once I finished watching that video, I clicked on the channel to see more content, and within an hour I was down at least 5 separate rabbit holes of 9/11 conspiracy theories, werewolf hunting, and pretending to be French. All from the same channel. What? So VideoJug is a channel that claimed to offer tens of thousands of how-to videos on various topics, from animal care to dating advice to accent lessons to politics. The channel boasted nearly 750,000 subscribers and over 500 million views. Back in the early 2010s, they would post dozens of videos a day, often narrated by experts in various fields. At the same time, under the surface of helpful tutorials and expert opinions was a massive collection of truly bizarre content waiting to be unearthed. But in 2013, the channel underwent a serious overhaul that caused them to severely rebrand and stop uploading on their main channel in what they didn't realize would be the end of their how-to empire. How did we get here? In 2006, VideoJug was founded by 3 British creators: entrepreneur David Tabazel, entrepreneur Dan Thompson, and journalist Danny Kelly. Although he wasn't mentioned by most news sites as being one of the founders, documentary filmmaker James Peake, who worked on the writing for many original VideoJug videos, also claims to be a founder on his website. The channel was founded in the really early days of YouTube, before they were even owned by Google, and they really were trying to do something new. On top of the YouTube channel itself, they also created a website, videojug.com. The URL now redirects back to the channel, but at the time, videojug.com was basically a centralized hub for all of their tutorial videos. The site provided captions and text versions of the videos that could be easily printed out if need be. When VideoJug started out as a bastion of the YouTube how-to community, they likely didn't intend to be a host for low-budget hospital dramas, conspiracy theorists, and deeply disturbing music videos. Rather, they were trying to fill a niche that, while commonplace now, didn't really exist at the time of VideoJug's creation. YouTube was still in its infancy, there wasn't a general central hub for video content, and internet advice and knowledge was often hard to find and unreliable. VideoJug wanted to fill that hole by making a trustworthy service to inform people of whatever they might need, be it advice on golf, advice for job interviews, car maintenance, or dating tips. Lots and lots of dating tips. But of course, hiring experts on such a broad range of topics, renting out studio space and equipment, hiring editors, and hosting thousands of videos wasn't cheap. VideoJug was going to need money. In their first year, they acquired $30 million in startup capital from 2 different investors: Jeremy Collar, an investment firm owner worth £320 million, and a recently defunct London-based hedge fund called Sloane Robinson that was known mostly for its stock trading in Asia. Knowing now the amount of bizarre content hiding under VideoJug's smooth and polished exterior, it's baffling to me that they got this much money right off the bat. But an idea like this had never really been done before, and the idea of having one place to go to learn how to do almost anything was probably pretty exciting. As it turns out, according to some LinkedIn comments from one of its former CEOs, the company failed to turn a profit until 2016, an entire decade later. And even then, the company was essentially gone by the next year. A couple people basically just put $30 million into a jug, and this company just kept taking from the jug for 10 years until someone dropped some more coins in, and then it turned into a ghost jug. Okay, so they had their money. They had $30 million to lose. The company was able to open an office in Los Angeles and began doing sponsored tutorial videos for Microsoft.
With the help of a couple of nifty features in Microsoft Office's new bits of kit, you don't need to be away from the parties for too long.
They also set up a deal with the Yellow Pages website not too long after that linked their videos to the Yellow Pages search engine. And with this, VideoJug was ready to get started and make their impact on the world. Their first few videos started out fairly normally. Their first video still up on the channel, and incidentally still one of their most popular, is a tutorial on how to kiss passionately. After that, it was a mix of golf, card tricks, sponsored tech videos, and Michael Jackson dance tutorials. They're okay. I mean, none of them are shot very well, and there's a decidedly awkward quality to all of them, but they do technically inform people on how to do things. In 2011, then CEO Tom Laidlaw gave a talk about the goals and aims of VideoJug, and it's really bizarre to watch now, almost a decade later, with the knowledge of how the internet would evolve and VideoJug's final fate. Tom states that the main focus of VideoJug is to create short-form sponsored content that viewers find primarily via searches. In his own words, it was less about becoming a destination site, but rather producing content that other users would find on their online journey. Additionally, VideoJug videos needed to have a long shelf life. Viewers would need to be able to utilize these videos for years to come. Anyway, so here's a video about how to add a photo background for your Zune. Tom really places emphasis on VideoJug's reliance on short-form content, even bragging that they found the boutique video length of 2 to 5 minutes. If you've ever watched video essays on YouTube, which I'm fairly confident that you have, you'll know that YouTube has started to favor longer and longer videos in recent years, often prioritizing them in the algorithms and encouraging them with higher viewer retention rates. While Tom may be talking about what makes VideoJug succeed, he's also inadvertently referencing the very thing that contributed to its downfall. Also, Tom ends this video by saying that VideoJug prioritizes quality sound and video because if the sound isn't good, viewers are more likely to close the video in the first 5 seconds. 3 things. 1, we know that's not true. 2, this whole presentation has some god-awful fuzz behind it. And 3,
But you win by threatening other team. Watch VideoJug!
the first sign on their channel that things were going a little strangely was a video titled How to Be a Hogwarts Student, which was half tutorial, half not very funny comedy video, in which viewers were encouraged to try starting arguments with their friends until they got mad enough to curse each other and unlock their psychic powers, murmuring random words into their casserole until they mastered potions, and tormenting friends by levitating various objects. It's worth mentioning here that VideoJug allowed user-submitted content, which was supposedly vetted for quality before being allowed on the website and channel. As I'll talk about later, it's questionable how well vetted these videos actually were. In any case, according to the founders, user-submitted tutorials made up about 5% of VideoJug's content, and How to Be a Hogwarts Student may well have been one of these. It's worth mentioning, though, that a lot of these videos are written by and star the exact same people, and very quickly, a lot more than 5% of their content gets very bizarre. It's all a very strange mix of genuinely helpful tutorials and just videos of dudes dicking around and trying to be funny. For example, How to Clown About Whilst Being Pursued, a video that teaches you how to be a discount vaudeville protagonist, stars the same actor as the serious tutorial, How to Avoid Credit Card Fraud.
How to clown about whilst being pursued.
The vaudeville guy was also an official writer for VideoJug, according to the Wikipedia page of his comedy partner, who most certainly wrote this page himself. The two of them were also featured in a Huffington Post article from 2012 teaching people how to give compliments as part of VideoJug. My point being, a lot of these weird videos weren't being submitted by random trolls, but by the VideoJug team themselves. This weird incongruity is further exemplified by the insane view discrepancy on VideoJug. You'd have a video with 4 million views right next to a video with 400 views, some having as many as 35 million and some having as few as 12. Like not 12 million or 12, like 12. And whenever these weird pseudo-comedy videos showed up on the channel, the commenters who did see it would respond with a mix of bafflement and anger at what they were watching. Even their most popular videos have weirdly high dislike ratios, showing incredible dissatisfaction towards VideoJug. Given their weirdly inconsistent content, you'd think they wouldn't be nearly as popular as they were. I mean, anyone going to the channel for genuine help would likely be put off by videos like How to Intimidate the Opposition, where a guy in a fake Russian accent just screams for 3 minutes, and people who wanted them to go full How to Basic would likely get bored with the large swaths of fairly helpful and mundane videos. According to the founders, the most popular advice categories on the channel were job tips and dating advice, and the sheer volume of romance tutorials on the channel is evidence of this. Looking at their top 10 videos, 3 of them were some flavor of dating tip. Given the thousands of topics discussed on the channel, that's a lot. Based on their most popular videos, it seems like their more mainstream collections of romance, money advice, and dance tutorials were supplementing weirder things like how to survive a werewolf attack. Despite the bizarre nature of everything going on here, it seems like the founders really believed in VideoJug as a project. The founders blog section on the Now Gone website includes this oddly poetic 2006 entry by founder David Tabazal.
For me, VideoJug used to have another name: the Wisdom Project. The wisdom of the older generations is often discarded, and so is lost forever when they die. This is such a waste. There are numerous historical, practical, and personal life events that repeat themselves, generation after generation. Sadly, it is a strange fact that today, in a multimedia world, that so much experience and understanding is unavailable on a universal basis. Our task at VideoJug is to collect and succinctly film world-class experience and know-how. By making and sharing tens of thousands of films, we can eventually produce a living, breathing, collaborative video encyclopedia to surviving and prospering in the face of the common challenges found in modern life. An ever-evolving, searchable source on how to live well and achieve success, wealth, health, and happiness.
It's also worth mentioning that when it comes to the weirder variety of VideoJug tutorials, a lot of them were sequels that followed ongoing narratives from earlier videos, like some sort of VideoJug cinematic universe. So if you were wondering how to stay friends with your ex and ended up on a tutorial for it on VideoJug, you would find yourself not on a straightforward tutorial video, but on a fucking hospital set with the words "last time on Broken Hearts" blaring at you. It's not even a tutorial, it's just a 3-minute episode of an ongoing hospital drama series courtesy of VideoJug framed as a how-to. Hospital sets are incredibly expensive. If you don't have this stuff already, you're going to have to rent it, and that's going to rack up a lot of money. At the same time, the quality of the video is absolutely terrible, even for something that came out in 2008. It's just really not shot well, yet this must have cost a ridiculous amount of money for VideoJug to make. It's the perfect indicator of a channel that clearly had a lot of money, but not a lot to actually do with it. Another odd thing about these continuous narratives is that they're notoriously hard to find. Almost all of their videos are formatted as how to do this, even when they're not really tutorials, and it's not like their multi-video stories have a playlist or anything. We know they exist, partly because I've stumbled upon a few, and because James Peake, the filmmaker from earlier who describes himself as a founder, still advertises that he wrote an ongoing love story for VideoJug. But they're very difficult to actually look for, and the only real way to find one is to accidentally stumble across them while searching for a straightforward tutorial. Also, I have to say that one of my favorite VideoJug videos that's part of an overarching narrative is called How to Know the Lyrics to Baby I Love You. It's just a music video by a band supposedly called Go For It, which was originally created for another parody VideoJug video, How to Start a Boy Band. Not only is the title incredibly awkward, being weirdly forced into the how-to title style, but despite being about how to know the lyrics are not listed either in the video or in the description. And just to add another layer of weirdness, halfway through the video, it just stops. Like, deadass stops.
I can see you through your blind, just to feel you and to kiss you. I just love the way you taste.
I didn't pause or edit that. That's legit how it was uploaded. And the bizarre thing is that you can find a proper version of this video on their Dailymotion page, meaning this wasn't just an intentional shitpost, but rather some sort of rendering error that happened in the YouTube upload process. Which begs the question of what oversight did this channel have? How did nobody catch this after nearly 10 years? And why did nobody seem to care? A lot of these videos weren't even tutorials and didn't purport to be. For example, the aforementioned conspiracy theory video was just a guy unironically talking about how jet fuel can't melt steel beams. There was no tutorial or how-to, it was just a random conspiracy guy talking about controlled demolitions. Or this video here that I'm not going to name because I don't want to get demonetized, but was once again just a guy talking about how it's a phenomenon of science. And these are two of their earliest videos. Beyond the fact that their whole channel was a bizarre mix of genuine tutorial videos and this stuff, a lot of their actual tutorials aren't very good. Like, for example, this video, How to Sound Like Donald Duck, is meant to be a genuine piece of information about improving your voice work. Except that the advice is bad, and at no point does the expert, an actor named Rasheen, ever actually sound like Donald Duck.
Once you've mastered the quack, move on to some simple phrases.
Side note, but Rasheen's videos are some of my favorite on VideoJug, and when I first fell in love with this channel in like 2012, they were the ones that really got me hooked. There's How to Cry on Cue, where at no point do any tears come out of Rasheen's eyes. There's How to Be Impossibly French, where Rasheen teaches you how to pretend to be French by stringing garlic around your neck and making up a fake French town where your bad French accent is from. How to Fake a Sickness, where she suggests carrying a can of vegetable soup wherever you go with your friends in case you want to pretend to throw it up to get out of a social interaction. And finally, possibly my favorite Rasheen video, How to Act Like a Vampire, with a bit about walking that feels like something out of What We Do in the Shadows. Nadia could never. I went on a bit of an internet rabbit hole when I first found this video so many years ago, and I have this really distinct memory of tweeting to Rasheen and her replying, but I can find no evidence of this ever actually having happened, and I can barely find anything about her now. Wherever she is, I hope she's doing well and messages me on Twitter. We don't have time to cover every bizarre video VideoJug released. Believe me, I desperately want to, but I put it into a web tool and it told me it would take a full week without sleeping breaks to watch every VideoJug video, and according to the site's ethos, short videos are key for good SEO. I estimate that this is probably at least 4 VideoJugs long by now. Maybe for a charity stream one day, I don't know. That being said, a lot of these titles are just so choice, so I would absolutely recommend choosing at least one off this list that speaks to you and looking it up yourself, because no matter which one it is, you're gonna find something absolutely incredible. There's this one where they just interview random people at Comic-Con and creep on cosplayers. There's How to Seduce a Celebrity, How to Butch Up Your Male Dog, How to Manipulate Men, Mind Games for Bad Girls, and a whole bunch more beautifully bizarre content for your viewing pleasure. But a good thing can't last forever, and eventually, as views dropped and subscription counts stagnated, it was time for VideoJug to adapt to a changing internet. So in 2013, VideoJug began the process of an intense rebranding. Fortunately for us, it was no less weird. So around 2013, another website founded in 2006 began to grow in popularity. The site hosted hundreds upon thousands of articles, guides, lists, quizzes, celebrity news, stolen Twitter posts, and something vaguely resembling journalism. While criticized heavily at the time, the site would soon grow into prominence, and it wasn't long before the name BuzzFeed was on everybody's mind. You might have heard of it, I don't know. One of the keys to BuzzFeed's success, on top of the sheer volume of viral content they put out and/or aggregated without credit or compensation, is that, much like VideoJug, their channel is clearly divided into a wide variety of nicely categorizable and highly shareable content. If you're into food, there are entire channels like BuzzFeed's Tasty that focus entirely on that. If you're into DIY, look no further than Nifty. You can find sub-channels of BuzzFeed's for virtually every topic that could possibly go viral, and the massive media network that they own has been a major key to their success. Well, for a channel like VideoJug that, while successful, has never once been profitable and seems to be struggling to define itself, this kind of formula is extra desirable, and VideoJug likely very quickly wanted in. So they stopped focusing on their main channel and instead started up a collection of side channels, each focused on their own topic while giving their website a drastic remodel. This wasn't the first time VideoJug had attempted something like this. Back in 2012, they attempted to start up a channel called VideoJug Gaming to focus specifically on video game related content. The channel only ever ended up getting just under 8,000 subs, a small fraction of VideoJug's 700,000, and most of their tutorial content was not only extremely low budget, but also just like bizarre. For example, take this tutorial, ostensibly a guide on how to play Zelda Ocarina of Time. You'd think it would teach you how to fight, or where to progress, or useful tips for the game itself, but the actual tutorial is literally just a guide of turning on your console, selecting the save file, and booting it up, and the video just ends there before you ever get a chance to actually play any Zelda. The video has a singular comment, incredulously asking whether this is a troll channel. Once again though, it super wasn't. This was one of their real ones. The rest of the channel is mostly like this, with a few guides on evolving specific Pokemon somewhere in the mix. When VideoJug decided to set up a series of more specific channels for their network a year or two later, VideoJug Gaming was, unsurprisingly, not resurrected. Instead, VideoJug set up a series of network channels focusing on various topics like makeup, comedy, and DIYs. They initially named these channels along the lines of VideoJug Beauty, VideoJug Food and Drink, and VideoJug DIY Gardening, but shortly afterwards renamed them to BuzzFeedier-sounding names like Pose, Scoff, Deco Bliss, and my favorite channel, Quipstar, which focused on short-form comedy content that could be watched in single sittings. Wait, this feels familiar. These channels weren't not popular, but they also never really caught on. Subscriber counts would range from 395,000 on one channel to as little as 100 subscribers on another. For example, one of their network channels, Statusphere, had just under 800 subscribers, and despite the fact that all these channels were rebranded to be sleek and BuzzFeedy, wasn't any less bizarre than its early VideoJug counterparts. Statusphere focused on listicles in video form, such as 7 facts you need to know about Pluto, superb 5-word tombstones, or my favorite, Jared Leto's facts and rumors that prove he'll be terrifying, which not only aged beautifully, but I just love the weirdly clunky way they named it. It doesn't even mention the Joker or the movie. Jared Leto is just rumored to be terrifying, which, if you follow Hollywood rumors, he is. A lot of this just genuinely feels like clickhole stuff, like this one where babies' faces are photoshopped into pizza and it just lists the babies.
Who will be the baby of the year? Look at their roles.
At the same time, again, it wasn't like this was pure parody and they leaned fully into it. A lot of this stuff was just completely serious and felt like an almost cynical attempt to capture BuzzFeed energy, making the weird stuff even weirder. And this was true for all of their channels. For example, Pose, their associated beauty channel, was mostly full of very basic hair and makeup tutorials that had a lot of mainstream appeal. And then they also had stuff on there like how to read a man by his lounge lizard boots, which was, again, a pseudo-comedy video about how you shouldn't trust a man who wears leather boots. By the end, most of the Pose videos were fairly basic and typically featured a couple of distinct personalities, but the weird, oddly inconsistent content was always lurking just below the surface. The bizarre nature of the channel had never stopped VideoJug from getting moderately popular in the past, and these new network channels were no exception. Based on those CEO LinkedIn comments, this was the first time VideoJug had ever been popular, and they seemed to find a business model that worked for them. Luckily, information on how that happened is pretty readily available because of another side channel, VideoJug Networks, where they advertised their company and encouraged creators to be a part of it. They state that they can connect creators to branded content and help them with audience engagements. They proudly boast that they receive a total of over 60,000 likes, comments, and shares a month, which is a number that seems really impressive until you realize that just moments later, they said they were basing this off of over 30 channels worth of content. Even just pausing the clip, you can see a screenshot from one of their advertised videos and see that it has only 2,381 views and only 32 likes. On top of producing content for VideoJug's own affiliated channels, the network also advertised itself as a sort of early MCN. Basically, they tried to attract independent creators to make sponsored content on their own channels while affiliated with Videojug, which, to be fair, has been a successful business model for other networks in the past. Except some of these affiliated channels are linked on Videojug's main page, and they're just not very successful. Their most popular affiliated channel is a magician with 12,000 subscribers who later went on to appear on some morning talk shows and do some pretty cool magic tricks. Everyone else has fewer subscribers than him, including affiliated channels with as few as 100. For example, there's a makeup channel on here with 100 subs that released 6 videos ever and never uploaded again. Based on their show reels made to advertise to other creators, sponsored videos seem to be typically commissioned in series of 6, so several of these channels were created for Videojug, made content once, and then never again. And they're still listed on Videojug Networks' page. Also, I googled the woman who made these makeup videos, and she's a verified Instagram influencer now with a website, a podcast, and 50,000 subscribers. She was also highlighted in the BBC and the Daily Mail. It's not that the talent they hired wasn't good, it's that they seem to have no idea what to do with it. And this is a common thing when it comes to Videojug. They started out with a lot of money and clearly had access to a lot of talented people. One of the earliest videos they uploaded is William Shatner showing off a bad celebrity impression. They were able to secure interviews with several celebrities at the 2018 Choice Awards like Brenda Song, Shailene Woodley, and director John Chu. Yet once again, this video has an absurdly low view count at only 175 views, and the actual talent they hired was once again often made up of some genuinely skilled people. Remember that guy from earlier who wrote a bunch of Videojug videos and very obviously wrote his own Wikipedia page? Yeah, he won 2 BAFTAs and was one of the writers for Shaun the Sheep and both Paddington movies. The problem wasn't the people Videojug had access to. The problem was something with Videojug itself. Something just wasn't working. The jug wasn't empty. The jug had all the right ingredients for a tasty pitcher of content. They just didn't know how to mix any of it together. So, what's wrong here? Despite, or maybe because of, the lack of significant material success coming out of Videojug Networks, they were going through a lot of changes behind the scenes in the mid-2010s. They initially hired a CEO named Nancy Cruikshank who stepped down to work at Telegraph. They had originally planned to simply go CEO-less, but that plan quickly fell through, them instead hiring Tom Laidlaw, the CEO from that video before. This, unfortunately, also didn't work out, and he was terminated as part of the rebranding. They went through an insane number of CEOs in a very short amount of time, from Nancy to Tom to their former head of commercial Gareth Mugford to a woman named Nina Harrison Bell to their current CEO, a man named Nick McAlpine. Once again, Nina Harrison Bell was the first person ever to make Videojug profitable, and she only worked at the company for less than a year, leaving in 2016. But this is where things get very confusing. In October 2015, Videojug acquired a firm called Blade & Moore that consults for clients like banks, big airlines, and Uber. Blade & Moore's founder, Richard Rivlin, became Videojug Networks' chairman. Videojug is still listed as the parent company of Blade & Moore in several places, which is really interesting to me because although Blade & Moore isn't a massive company, they're clearly much more engaged than Videojug and are doing a lot more professional work. Videojug also created a company called Arcuro in late 2016, which they listed on their networks page and in the descriptions of their videos as the company to email for B2B inquiries for Videojug. The Arcuro website no longer exists, and the company was formally dissolved in November 2018, but according to their website, specialists in 3 distinct areas, Arcuro is a group of award-winning filmmakers and digital experts helping our international client base to best use the power of film, online video, and digital technologies to connect, inform, and engage with the audiences that matter most. Whatever the fuck that means. The website also states that they specialize in building sustainable businesses, which is, well, you know. Arcuro's mission statement and everything on their website is exceptionally vague and full of corporate jargon, but based on what parts of this web archive from 2017 will still load, Arcuro did some degree of work helping to produce corporate films for investment firms and medical companies, as well as apparently the NHS. None of these films will actually load nowadays, but Googling things like Corporate Film Invest Corp pulls up the fact that Blade & Moore also produced a corporate film for them. For a period of about 2 years, Arcuro, Bladenmore, and Videojug were deeply intertwined. For instance, Nina Harrison Bell, the CEO of Videojug, who brought the company into profitability, was the head of Bladenmore's video department throughout most of 2015, then worked for Videojug throughout 2016, and then after she left, became the CEO of Arcuro in 2017. She now works for another company that, while full of jargon and corporate speak, also seems to make films for corporations. So, I mean, good for her. A lot of their clients are the same as well. Philips is listed as a Bladenmore client, and they were also one of the only listed sponsors of Videojug Networks. Also, of the few listed clients on Arcuro that we can still find on Web Archive, there's a lot of overlap with Bladenmore. Not to mention, this shuffling of employees between the three companies isn't limited just to Nina. Nick McAlpine started working for Bladenmore in 2005 and was there until 2015. After that, he became director of Videojug, where his LinkedIn said he worked until July 2017. Earlier that year, in January of 2017, he became a director executive producer at Arcuro, a title his LinkedIn says he still holds to this day. So between January and July, he was the director of Videojug and Arcuro at once. Then in August of 2017, after seemingly leaving Videojug, he became director executive producer of Bladenmore. Based on a blog post about lockdown this April, this is still the case, and he currently heads a film team at Bladenmore that produces films for its corporate clients. If this is confusing to you, you're not alone. My co-writer Emily and I ended up sending an email to Nick, hoping to disentangle some of whatever is going on between these three companies, and ended up receiving a response from Nick saying he currently oversees Videojug, and that he worked with Videojug from the very start, before YouTube was even owned by Google. So he may have been working with Videojug and Bladenmore at the same time, starting as far back as 2006, and still is. We sent 2 follow-up emails explaining what this channel is and a few other questions about what Videojug's deal was, but as of now, we haven't gotten anything back. I want to remind everyone once again, since a lot of these videos from Bladenmore look extremely sleek and corporate, that they came from the same people who produced How to Clown About Whilst Being Pursued, How to Intimidate the Opposition, and How to Know the Lyrics to Baby I Love You. To further add to the confusion, although Videojug seems to have acquired this very serious media company in 2015 and constantly passed its employees back and forth between the three companies for several years, and although Videojug is listed as Bladenmore's parent company in multiple places, this no longer seems to be the case. The public records for things like acquisitions are all available for Videojug online, and apparently they went through some kind of downstream merger in 2017, and Bladenmore now controls Videojug. A venture capital group called MC50 bought a whole bunch of Videojug shares in 2016, and a year later, Bladenmore bought them back and are now Videojug's owners. This is further confirmed by the brief email exchange we had with Nick, in which he says he's currently Videojug's director and oversees it on behalf of its current owner, Bladenmore. We also looked further into the financial records available for Videojug because although they don't seem to actually do anything anymore, they technically still exist and are registered as an active company. We also Googled the office address on Videojug's LinkedIn page, and it leads back to the Bladenmore office. They currently are listed as having an average of 0 employees, £14,000 in current assets, and £3.9 million in liabilities, meaning they're worth around -4 million in money right now. Their fixed assets, meaning stuff like equipment and studio space, also went down by $80,000 between this year and last year, which means they seem to be essentially just sitting around losing money for Bladenmore. Once again, we emailed Nick to ask if Videojug is actually even still doing anything anymore, but have yet to hear back. As far as we know, Videojug just exists solely as a ghost jug, dead but still around haunting the place. Looking back on Videojug, it's hard to see why this company is even worth remembering or what its purpose was to begin with. How can a company with such a simple business plan as make how-to videos turn into this? And what was it that made them die out so harshly? The easiest thing to blame is how the foundation of YouTube itself has changed. As YouTube developed and changed over time, so did its algorithms and its culture. This is evidenced by the fact that the early Videojug networks Showreel straight up told people that most of their traffic came from people who were searching for them. That's great if you're working with an algorithm that prioritizes short videos, but as we now know, it super does not. As mentioned before, VideoJug boasted about the importance of short-form video, something that would become discouraged by YouTube's changed algorithm, which promotes long-form videos more in recommendations and search results. I mean, this video alone is probably going to turn out to be at least 9 VideoJugs or 4 Quibbies long. For a company dedicated almost entirely to SEO, that had to be a significant wound. I think the general culture shift of YouTube was also a pretty big factor. As the site became more and more mainstream, the prominence of YouTube personalities grew more and more. Gone were the days when most people would mostly just discover videos by Googling. Now they wanted to follow individual creators, not just because they want tips, but because they enjoy the people on camera. This is going to be a significant blow to VideoJug because, again, searches are where most of their traffic came from. This is really evident with the popularity of beauty bloggers. Which would you rather watch for makeup advice? Some random how-to video made by someone you're not sure you can trust from a generic-sounding company, or a video made by a creator you know and find enjoyable and you can trust to provide entertaining content? And just look at me, I don't call my channel sociological media criticism, I call it Sarah Zed because Sarah Zed is me. So on the connecting with people side of things, VideoJug is naturally going to fail because a lot of being a successful YouTuber these days and having people come back to your channel is making people like not only your content, but like you as a person. And although late VideoJug made some efforts with hiring recurring personalities for their network channels, it was really just too little too late. And for people who are browsing the internet looking for vaguely bizarre and eye-catching instructional content, the truth is they're not going to be looking for something like VideoJug. With 5 Minute Crafts being one of the most successful channels of all time, the rise of content farms has definitely put a dent in the success of more straightforward tutorial channels. Channels like 5 Minute Crafts are bright and colorful, appealing to kids, often cycle through the same content over and over again, meaning they take very little time and effort to make, and, as demonstrated by YouTube personalities like Ann Reardon, often literally fake their tutorials because they produce so much content that very few people will ever actually try out everything they make to see if any of it actually works. That means, as unfortunate as it is, content farms like 5 Minute Crafts and Blossom can produce more visually appealing tutorials with less time, money, and effort. The rise of content farms has had a negative effect on all kinds of creators and producers. There's been a lot of talk about how independent cooking channels get forced out of YouTube because of recipes that don't even work but can get way more views with way less effort. But I think this is especially the case for things like VideoJug's now defunct DIY channel. There's no one to connect to, so people aren't gonna repeatedly come back to this channel. There are tons of reasons the algorithm isn't gonna like VideoJug, so no one is gonna come across it organically or in their recommendations either. That means, at best, they're gonna have people finding them through one-time searches for one very specific need, and that's just not enough to keep people hooked. This is true not just for VideoJug, but for the culture of how-to videos in general. I mean, it's telling that right now, the most popular ostensible how-to channel is a guy who makes fake tutorial videos where he just smashes eggs around. Even if you're doing everything right, the way YouTube is currently structured just isn't very friendly to regular short uploads that aren't from personalities you can really connect to. For example, the most popular actual how-to channel right now is called Howcast with 8.1 million subscribers. Yet despite those massive numbers and regular continual uploads to this day, they're still not pulling very big numbers, getting only a few thousand views per video on average. All their heaviest hitting videos came out somewhere between 2010 and 2013, and they don't have a single video in their top 200 uploads that came out less than 5 years ago. Howcast has its fair share of strange and awkward videos as well, like this video about how to kiss like Twilight, but by and large, the channel seems much more professional and consistent, and the videos are shot well and seem fairly high quality. They're still really not doing great. All this to say, you can do everything right as a current how-to channel and still fail because of the way YouTube culture is nowadays. Even HowToBasic, who again is a parody YouTuber making fun of these channels, isn't doing as well as he used to. I mean, he's still pulling 1 million or more views per video, that's a lot, but all his really viral content is several years old, and it's been a while since the channel really struck gold. I think this is in part because the joke relies on recognizing the structure of a how-to video. The first few seconds are designed to look like an old Videojug or Howcast video, which makes it funny when you recognize the pattern and it suddenly turns into eggs. That joke really only works if you know what a high-budget how-to video is supposed to look like, so it's no surprise that How To Basics' heyday was around the same time that most real tutorial channels were at their most popular. Though those comparisons would imply that Videojug was running perfectly fine up until they went defunct. As you can tell by their large amounts of dislikes and widely varying view counts, bad signs were there from the start. The real problem seems to be the company's lack of quality control. Videojug seemed to have a substantial identity crisis. Did it exist as a helpful informational provider or as a comedy shitpost channel? Both of these have potential for an audience, but they can't earnestly coexist. People who want to see wacky comedy videos aren't going to subscribe for boring education videos, and people who want to see pure educational material aren't going to appreciate the more surreal and humorous videos that would also be uploaded. This isn't helped by the standardization of the channel titles. Because of the way Videojug operated, almost all of its content followed the formula of how to blank. This seems simple enough, but it also means there's not much to determine if the video is meant to be serious or if it's meant to be funny unless the title is also hilariously absurd. Their upload rate couldn't have helped things either. Videojug seemed to prioritize quantity over quality, which would make sense when you're focusing primarily on SEO. The more things you make, the more likely people will find you via search engine. But once again, this leads to a massive bulk of content, most of it either not good or just not indistinguishable from one another. There are 5 videos just on how to mess with telemarketers. You can't make over 125,000 videos without double dipping, sure, but at a certain point you start to dilute the market with your own content. And going back to the subscriber model, it keeps people from wanting to follow Videojug directly. With people primarily paying attention to their subscription feeds nowadays, do you really want to subscribe to a channel that uploads videos in bursts of dozens? Most of which are videos you won't even watch because, well, you don't need to learn about how to send a wedding invitation to a male military officer. Well, why not follow the Videojug site then? After all, it's clear that that's where the majority of their attention went to and clearly what they wanted people to see. And to that, there's no easy answer except to say that websites aren't what they used to be. YouTube won the video market, and a lot of people don't like to watch videos on sites that aren't YouTube. For something as expensive as video hosting, you need a wide amount of traffic to continue being profitable, and I can't imagine that many people were going to videojug.com relative to the amount of people who watched them on YouTube. Videojug is fascinating because it feels like such a time capsule of an era of the internet that doesn't exist anymore. It's this strange, surreal mess of a channel with more content than anyone could ever reasonably expect to watch. It's a lesson about how a company can stray so far away from its original intention in pursuit of popularity, and how that ultimately led to their downfall. I've always been a fan of weird content online, whether it's this guy who's made thousands of videos imitating pop culture content with baffling titles, or a family band that makes really awkward viral songs. But one thing that's particularly interesting about the brand of weirdness at Videojug is how entrenched it is in this very formal how-to framework. Videos about stalking around and hissing to be more like a vampire coexist with things like Bladen Moore's deeply commercial energy and high-budget content in a way that's incredibly fascinating to me. The mix of earnest creativity and corporate cynicism at Videojug is both what made me love it and, very likely, a large part of what destroyed them. That's not even mentioning how much of their work is just misguided talent. Like, for every video made by an actual expert or every video made by a funny comedian, there's one that blurs the line between both, solely because of the low quality of the presenters and the production. I feel like nowadays, even a lot of weird content is polished and consistent in its weirdness. That isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're in the mood for some strange offbeat sketch comedy or a guy throwing eggs at the wall. It's generally a good thing to know you're gonna get the exact brand of oddity you expect, and it's the reason these things are able to be relatively successful. At the same time, there's something unique about the feeling of unpredictability you get from the kind of raw, unfiltered, often accidental peculiarity that Videojug has to offer. And as much as it's fun to watch and make fun of, there's something kind of delightful about that. It makes the process of watching a Videojug video feel like getting a prize from a cereal box. You're not sure what you're gonna get when you click on it. Will it be something low-key and normal? Will you get something wild and strange? Or will you get something that's just downright bad? I mentioned earlier a list of VideoJug videos that we've discovered that are particularly funny or strange, but there's over 150 hours worth of content currently on that channel, and there are bound to be some fantastic videos we haven't even discovered yet, especially taking into account how many side channels the network boasted. I would highly encourage everyone to check the channel out and see if you can find one for yourself that's truly special or bizarre. And if you do, please tweet them at me. I want to see all of it. We've talked about a channel that ended up being more bizarre entertainment than education, but if you are looking to learn something real and cool, especially given how hard it is to wade through so much content to get to the good stuff, I can't recommend CuriosityStream and Nebula enough. CuriosityStream, my sponsor for this video, is a really fantastic streaming service that offers thousands of really interesting and informative documentaries on a broad range of subjects like science, nature, and technology, and I find myself always learning something new on there. CuriosityStream has also partnered with Nebula in order to help creators like me make some really cool content. Nebula is a collaborative streaming platform between me and tons of other creators like Tierzoo, Lindsay Ellis, Legal Eagle, and many more. It's a really great platform for educational and informative content, especially content that isn't best suited for YouTube because of copyright or monetization issues. For example, I was able to make a video called Debater Theater specifically for Nebula, and it's something I'm really proud of. In Debater Theater, I talk about how to better use arguments to persuade others with lots of cool examples like how people use debating skills in movies, the news, and even award acceptance speeches. It was a really fun video to do, and as someone who used to teach debate to a lot of novices at university, these kinds of tools are a really fun way to get better at persuasiveness and critical thinking, and how to notice when other people are trying to use those same tricks on you. And the best part is, signing up for CuriosityStream with my code also includes full, unlimited access to Nebula. It's the only place where you can watch Debater Theater and lots of other cool original content for Nebula. Just head to curiositystream.com/SarahZ and use my code SarahZ at signup. That's curiositystream.com/SarahZ. I can't stress enough how grateful I am to have a platform like Nebula where educational creators can make this kind of content, and it's great to be a part of it. On top of a big thank you to all my patrons, I would like to specially thank Kim Weston and Yehuda Katz for joining my $20 plus tier. Welcome.